the topic goes, this is going to be the one about tracking and measuring the AI impact on your website. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff, show you the tools, explain you the benefits of AI search, although I think a lot of people are already familiar with that. We'll show you the challenges, which there is quite a lot, I would say, and we're going to share the scorecard that we are using internally to track the AI impact or like AI traffic in like many different ways. But before we get into that, I just want to give like a short intro into who I am and what I've been doing. So my name is Vuk. I've been doing SEO for the last 15 plus years now, which is like 50% of my life. Just a couple of weeks back, I turned 29. And I've been doing SEO since I was like 14, pretty early start in this industry. So now I officially spent like more than 50% of my life doing this, which I don't know if it's sad or nothing, something like that, but I love SEO. So it's definitely have been a fun ride. And I've done this job from like a lot of different angles. I always have like projects and experiments of my own that I'm running, but I also done it as part of the agencies like here at Chronix. I've done it in-house for a lot of different brands. I've also done it at different scales, from anything from small businesses to enterprise. So I think that's sort of like a variety of different experiences, like what kind of makes me unique in SEO. And also, I'm a kind of an SEO geek. I love talking about SEO. I love nerding out on this stuff, and it's super fun to me. So I hope it's going to be super fun to you as well on what I have to share today. And outside of doing SEO, I'm a huge sports fan. I love to watch sports and I love to play sports as well. Anything from basketball, soccer, paddle, squash. I'll play pretty much anything. I'm like a dog. You just throw like a ball at me, and I'm gonna start running. So I love playing sports, and I love watching it as well. So that's it about me. We're gonna go more into the actual presentation stuff. So I still want to get some of the stuff out there before we go into the deep on actual tracking and things like that. So the naming convention, I think that's sort of like a conversation that we've all been seeing and we've all been part of. If you've been on LinkedIn or any social media, everybody is sort of like having this discussion on what we want to call this stuff. To me, it doesn't really matter. I think I don't really care about the acronym stuff. I just care about making this work. So I'm gonna use this, I would say, interchangeably. So sort of like GEO, AEO, AI search. To me, that's all the same thing essentially. And I don't know if you care about it. You can also call it SEO because it definitely belongs to the SEO SEO stuff that we do, and I think it lands on the SEO team as well. So I think in most places, in like most companies that I've seen, like people who are owning the organic search or like traditional SEO, also on the AI search conversation. So it is not a new department, in my opinion. It's just a new surface that we SEOs kind of focus on. And in my opinion, it's mostly the same work as SEO with quite a few differences, but still pretty much the same stuff. So I don't really care about how we call it, as long as we know it's the same thing. So what we're going to cover today is the actual setup of AI search. What changed, how the AI search works. From like a high level standpoint, both from like an AI assistant, chatbots, AI overviews, things like that. And we're going to look at the AI impact stack. The 4 layers that we are trying to measure internally, and then the 8 actual KPIs that I think everybody should be tracking when it comes to AI search. Again, there are more metrics that one could definitely track, but I feel like this right now is like covers sort of like all of the things that are important. And then if there ends up being any questions at the end of it, we're definitely gonna try to answer and cover all of those. Okay, so what AI search actually brings us? Let's agree on like what are some of the things that have been changing. These are a couple of the numbers that we pulled from various HubSpot studies. Now, these numbers are going to look different from website to website. They're not like set in stone or anything like that. They're more like directional and tells us like where is the search sort of like moving, which means that like you're going to be seeing less clicks. And if you're working on your projects or like on your client projects, you likely saw a drop in clicks in the last couple of years, especially in the last couple of months as AI overviews on Google kind of became like this dominant thing on pretty much all of the different queries that users ask. So the 27% reduction in organic traffic year over year, that's across the HubSpot customers base, but it might be lower or higher depending on the type of business that you're running. This is again just for a particular piece of software, but I think in general we're all seeing a reduction in clicks. We are still seeing like a growth in AI referral traffic as more and more users are starting to use different AI chatbots. So I think that's going to continue to grow, obviously, as all of these tools continue to acquire a larger user base. And what we also know is that these tools kind of give us the better conversion rate as opposed to traditional SEO and traditional search. So again, this is just the number from HubSpot. It might be lower. We've seen studies where that say that the conversion rate isn't as high as 4.4 in this case, but yeah, it could be anything, from higher to lower. But in general, I would say that we are seeing better conversion rate from LLM referred visitors because they come better informed, and we will explain why in a couple of seconds. And the usual question on this is like, is SEO dying? Because, as we're seeing the reduction in clicks and people are so like making these estimations that the clicks are continuing to go down and we're going to reach the 0-click search or whatever we're going to call it. Personally, I do not subscribe to that line of thinking. I don't think we are going to ever reach the 0-click. And even if we do reach the 0-click moment, I don't think SEO is dead by any means. And that's simply because as long as there are people searching for things, I think that demand is there. Just because they're using a different tool to search the internet, it doesn't mean that the demand actually went away. So, and just a couple of weeks back during the World Cup, we had the highest number of Google searches in the history of Google. So I think that kind of tells us that the SEO is definitely not dying. And I think the conversational nature of like AI search, increase the demand. And I'm going to show you exactly what we think by that. And I think now for a lot of the users who are using all of these different AI chatbots, it helps them to, surface more brands, more solutions, more competitors, and do that faster, which only indicates that, they're going to search more because it's now easier than ever to do that. And some of that visibility has obviously moved into tools that we can't perfectly track. And I'm transparent enough to say that we don't have like a complete solution for tracking because at this moment it's impossible to have it. So it made our jobs a little bit harder, but the demand is definitely still there. So I believe that SEO has been in a best position probably ever. And I just touched on this briefly. Like AI search is great for users. It's harder now for marketers because again, a lot of the stuff is now essentially invisible to us, and that's why we are here today. It's to figure out how we can make a lot of that stuff more visible and how to bridge that gap between not knowing like what did the visitors actually search for that made them come to our website and you take action. Fill out the form, buy something or whatever it is. So what got better for the buyer? It's an instant answer instead of multiple links to go through. That's pretty clear. Like you can ask any of these AI chatbots and you're usually going to get an answer just because how they are designed. They are generally never saying like, oh, we don't know the answer to this. You're always going to get the answer even if the answer is incorrect. That doesn't mean that a lot of people will not go to traditional search. Like I do use Google a lot still, and I like to see like where is the particular piece of information actually coming from. I don't like to blindly trust the LLMs on this. I think a big thing is the conversational refinement, meaning that users can actually ask questions in like a natural language rather than having to use particular keywords. Which brings me back, like when I was teaching my parents to use Google years back, I was incapable of actually explaining to my dad that he can't ask a long ass question on Google because he's not going to get any results. And the time has finally come and he can actually do that. So I think it makes it so much easier for people who do not know how to, break down a question into an actual keyword. They can just ask it now, and that's amazing. And it allows people to do like comparisons across a lot of different brands. Do like HubSpot versus another tool in like minutes instead of like going through many websites to pick up all of the information and so on. Obviously, for us marketers, as I said, less clicks because a lot of these answers absorb them, which means that the people are not going necessarily to the websites to get the information. They're getting that information from AI chatbots. You also have less control, or like no control, how you're being framed, because you can't fully impact the training data. You can't fully impact all of the surfaces that AI kind of gets the information from. And the actual selection criteria is still pretty much a black box. As much as we try to impact all of these things, it's impossible to do it fully. And we also seen a lot of the wrong claims. We've done so many of these AI audits for our clients, and we've seen like AI claiming things that just not true. But that's the nature of AI tools, who just hallucinate, or in other words, make mistakes. So that's just the case. So let's talk a little bit about how AI search actually works, and what AI search even means. I kind of bucketed this into three different categories. One is the standalone assistants, which I think everyone has used at some point in time, like these are all like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, Perplexity. There are a bunch of these, obviously. I think 100 plus models at this point, all of the Chinese ones as well. Like all of these are essentially just assistants, where somebody asks a question, they get an answer, and sometimes the answer actually includes citations to the website. That's very different from LLM to LLM. ChatGPT includes a lot of citations, where, Claude, that I think a lot of people are also using, doesn't use citations almost ever. So you have to ask for citations if you want in Claude, for example, as opposed to ChatGPT that kind of gives them out freely. This is the bucket you can actually measure a lot today, because it's super easy to do, and we're gonna dedicate a big portion of this webinar to how can we track answers coming in from these particular assistants. There's also AI inside of traditional search, mainly AI overviews and AI mode on Google, right? That's pretty simple. We can see everything that's been going on there for quite some time. The problem with that is that on the tracking side, if somebody clicks through a link in an AI overview, it's going to be categorized as organic search, which is exactly the same as if they click the actual traditional search result, which obviously kind of complicates the situation, because you don't know if the AI has impacted that particular visitor, or if they just clicked on your website directly. And we have the third bucket, which is the AI browsers and agents, which I think is like the smallest of them all, but still not negligible, because there is still a percentage of users who actually do this stuff. Like that's essentially just software that actually browses on humans' behalf. I personally done this with Claude. You can install the Claude extension inside of your Google Chrome, and essentially you're going to be able to allow your chatbot to use your browser, which means that it can go visit websites, scrape information, fill form, book things, like do a bunch of different stuff. And that's where you go from like a chatbot to what people call agent. Whether we all agree on that, that's a different question, but it's definitely a category that is hardest to track, I would say, because a lot of these tools are essentially acting like humans, and you can't really see that clearly inside of your reporting, but we'll talk about that as well. How it actually works, this is, I think, important to understand at like a high level if you want to track this precisely and accurately. There are essentially like two ways that we get the answers from chatbots. One is the training data. If anybody remembers, or if anybody used like ChatGPT when it just came out, like whatever you asked, if it was like a current event that happened like a month ago or a couple of weeks back, or like the last day or something like that, you were not able to get a precise answer. You will always get like, oh, the training cutoff date was like a couple months back, which just means that there are always these cutoff dates before all of these tools kind of stop and don't get any more data in, which makes them less reliable, which makes them less useful, and so on. But these training data is essentially set in stone, and if you're not inside of the training data at that moment in time, it's like you're a new brand, you're starting a new website, you're likely not in the training data. So that you can't influence until the particular company actually does the next training run. What's more important is something we call grounding. I like to just call it chatbots borrowing search results. It's the live retrieval of results, which means that the AI chatbot actually goes in and scrapes the live index from like Bing or Google and reads what comes back. And then along with the training data, it all gets kind of put into the same answer. And again, as I mentioned, like citations are sometimes included depending on the tool. Like we know ChatGPT does a lot of these citations. Some others, unfortunately, not as much. I think step two is like what matters for us the most, because that's where a lot of the stuff that we'll cover today comes from. And it's also why there is such a big correlation between what, for example, ChatGPT recommends on a particular topic, or like what services or products like ChatGPT recommends, and what you can see at the top of the Google. It's because of this grounding method where, the ChatGPT or like any other AI tool goes into Google search and borrows these results, like reads them and provides the answer based on them. And the way it actually does it is pretty interesting. Again, we're just gonna sort of like cover this at a high level without going into like too specific and too many technical details. But this particular method is called query fanout, which means that if you ask a particular question inside of your AI chatbot, what it's actually going to do, it's not going to perform just one search. So if you go back to here, so it's not going to go and just ground this into like one page of search results. It's usually going to do like multiple different searches. We've seen Google doing like 16 to 32 different searches. ChatGPT does a little bit less, but on like if you type something like best CRM for a 12-person agency, you can see like the different examples of like these type of searches that ChatGPT does on your behalf, where it goes to the actual traditional search results to find the answers for that. And this is what also complicates a lot of the tracking, because unlike traditional search, where we have like the rank tracker and very deterministic results, now we have something completely different. Another thing that complicates it is because these query fanouts are not widely available. We can scrape them when it comes to like ChatGPT, but not for other tools, and we can do it for Google, which is, I think, for most of us, the most important one. There are tools that kind of simulate this based on the Google's patent on how they actually do this, but that they are not necessarily true. So, all of these are just simulations and not rooted in actual reality. So be, wary when you're actually using this, because they are not necessarily precise, but they are still pretty good example that, can give you like these type of searches that, are as close that we can get right now. And as I mentioned, like the problem with AI search is that you ask the same question twice, you get two different answers. Again, these systems are not deterministic. That's by design. We can now on the call use the same prompt, me and Tanya, and we're gonna get the same at the same time different answers. And I can do it like with 30 minutes difference, and I might get a different answer. So that obviously complicates the tracking, because again, it's not something that is consistent. And on top of that, if you've been using any of these AI chatbots, you know that there is personalization, location, chat history. Like if you've been chatting with your chatbot for quite a while, it's gonna insert all of these personal details, and it's gonna personalize a lot of your searches based on like what it knows about you, which makes it so much harder to track. And that's why a lot of these tools that are now popping up that are telling you like, oh, you rank number 3 in ChatGPT, like that's I don't want to use the word but that exactly, but that's obviously not precise, because that's not how ChatGPT works, or any of these tools. Like it's impossible to get a particular number of like how well do you rank in this. You can just appear in some answers, you don't appear in other answers. But I'm gonna tell you how we can actually solve that and how we look at this internally. And to us, I think all of this data is sort of like directional. We don't treat it as a rank tracker. We look at all of these numbers and all of these answers as like, okay, so what is actually being shown? So if you're working on a client campaign and we start doing all of these scraping of answers from AI chatbots, we try to see like what data comes up, right? Which is just about reading direction and not position. We don't really focus too much on if we are being mentioned as like the number one, because again, there is no number one. But if there is a signal in all of that, and the signal gets drawn out over a period of time where you can see what type of website gets cited and why. And is that your website? Do you even have a page that can get cited for a particular answer or a particular question? And if it's not your website, is that a competitor website? Is that a third-party website that has nothing to do with your competitors? Is that Reddit? Is that whatever it may be? And for us, sample size or like beats precision. We just want to see over time, what is actually being mentioned and why, and then try to reverse engineer their process in order to get inside of the training data and to get inside of the grounding results. And it tells us like what topics we might be invisible for, which kind of informs like what type of content campaign we can do, which competitors are getting pulled instead of us. It's often just the high correlation with search results. So competitors that get pulled over us is usually the competitors who are ranking better than we do. But again, it's worth checking that, and then over time you can see whether things are moving and in what direction. It's also going to see like over time that all these AI chatbots kind of change their, I'm not going to say algorithm, but the way they're actually surfacing the answers. But all of that is essentially just signal that allows you to build a plan, and that allows you to build a plan of action, which then you can actually do different things based on the findings. The problem number two, again, we talked about this, the clicks, you can see it. As I mentioned, we are not seeing as many clicks anymore inside of like our regular reporting, because all of these AI chatbots are essentially absorbing a lot of that. And the process for this is, just so different than with traditional search. Back then, like a couple of years back, or like ever before, like AI chatbots became a thing. Like somebody searches on Google, they see the list of results, they go to the website, they perform an action or they don't, but you can kind of clearly see like their path on like what happened and why. Now that's a lot harder because a lot of these questions are happening inside of AI chatbots and we don't have the data. So if somebody asks into a ChatGPT like on a particular topic, they just can't, you just can't see that and know like how did they actually ask that question, what words did they use and things like that. And if they actually go then to Google and Google your brand name, and they come to your website, inside of analytics, you're going to see that conversion as part of the organic search, which obviously wasn't true, but I think that's a much larger conversation about tracking in marketing and marketing funnels, which have always been inaccurate to a degree. It's now become a lot more inaccurate for SEO specifically, but marketing attribution has always been a big challenge for everybody doing marketing, because users never really, act on the internet the way we kind of imagine that. It's always far more messy, and we can't see most of the things that they're actually doing. So AI obviously complicates that, but we're gonna try to come up with an answer to that. I think one of the most underrated ways to do that is to actually go and ask people. And I'm actually like, I don't see a lot of people doing this, and I don't know why, but I think it's so simple to do this. Is to just try and ask people like, how did they actually hear about us? And this is as simple as adding a question to the form on your website, or like on your sales script, where you can just ask people, add the AI assistant option to the list, or ask them like, how did you find us? And we are actually seeing a lot of that becoming a thing where they say they found us through ChatGPT, for example, but when we actually look at the analytics say a different story. So, and you should always trust the data where somebody actually tells you like how did they find you. And I think we've seen this HubSpot trying to solve this, and it's a pretty good thing. You can also do like customer calls or like customer interviews. A few years back, we were running a SaaS, like an AI internal linking tool. And since we were like in the early stages, we had a lot of time to these customer calls and interviews where we just asked so many questions, like from our audience who found us in like many different ways. And it was like super revealing to understand that our ideas and our expectations on how they actually found us was so different than what is the actual truth. And I think there is so much benefit to doing this customer calls and interviews and just figuring out like what they were reading, if they were using AI chatbots, like what type of questions were they asking. And this is not important just for like tracking and measuring the AI impact on your website. It's also important for your general marketing strategy because you're just going to find out so much good information there. And any information you find, you can just include it inside of your tracking. We're going to talk about specifically in the inside of the layer 2 how you can integrate that in your prompt tracking later on. But I think this is such an underrated way, and I think a lot of people miss this. We're going to cover now the AI impact stack, the 4 layers. I just briefly revealed what is the layer 2, which is the prompt tracking, but there are 3 more layers, which I think is all important. Most of them are free or like nearly free, so I think it's easy for most people to actually start running this. We have traffic, who actually clicked through to you. You can see that inside of like analytics or HubSpot or any reporting tool that you're using. That's pretty easy. Unfortunately, that's a very small percentage of traffic that you can actually see. You have the visibility layer, which is how often does AI show inside you. This is the prompt tracking, but also like Search Console, Bing Webmaster Tools that now reveals particular citations and topics that people have used when they were searching for a company. We have the consumption layer, which I think is also something that a lot of people miss, which is which AI systems are actually reading your site. And you have to enter your server logs to actually understand this, but you're going to be seeing how different AI chatbots and AI tools actually scrape your website. And then you can compare the data. Like if a particular chatbot is scraping a lot of your pages or like particular pages, then you should know that there is something going on there. It's either they are using that a lot for like grounding, and then you can compare that with other numbers. We're going to show you the full scorecard in a minute. And then you can see the outcomes and influence, which is the most important thing. Like, what does it all turn into? Is there leads, revenue, demand coming in from AI search, and how? You can use HubSpot, but you can also use some other proxies for that, like increase in branded search and the self-reported stuff that we just discussed a minute ago. On the layers, the first one, Google Analytics, I think we all have used this in the past or still using it largely. They finally have a channel for AI search, which you can use, but I don't recommend you use. It's pretty easy to find. It lives with all of the other channels that Google Analytics have set that up for you. It's called the AI Assistant Default Channel. It just decides the campaign based on a couple of different AI assistants that they flagged. I'm going to explain why I don't trust this data, because there is a couple of things that I missed. It's obviously free. It takes nothing to configure. It's there. If you go into analytics right now, you can see this. Unfortunately, numbers will be low, especially because they missed a couple of things. But I don't really like this. I think the problem with that is that assistants only count since the launch, which means that it doesn't do these things like going back, which means that you may not see a lot of the traffic that happened like a year ago. It doesn't get attributed to AI search. And there are also assistants that are not on the list, like Claude is not on the list, Perplexity is not on the list, and a bunch of other AI tools are not going to be on the list. It's also a black box because Google doesn't publish the full matching list, which means that you can control what gets tracked as AI search and what doesn't get tracked as AI search, which I absolutely hate. And I just think the system is completely broken. It's not, I wouldn't say it's completely useless, but the solution to fix this is like, 10 minutes of work, which is just to build your own channel group and to use your own regex to define all of the channels that you think belong to the AI traffic. And they also apply retroactively, which means that if you set it up today, all of your data comes in and it gets grouped inside of the AI traffic. So I think that's pretty good. It doesn't happen for all the uh, GA4 stuff, which again, it doesn't really make sense, but it is what it is. And you also own the list. You can change it. You can add assistants. You can remove the assistants, and you know everything that goes into it. And it takes a couple minutes to set up. So I definitely recommend you guys to do this. We can share the particular rejects that we are using internally to build these channels. We have been doing this for a very long time. So even when Google kind of came out with their own, we didn't start using that. We're still using our custom one because I think that's just not better. We also know that HubSpot has this too. Again, it's their own way. They do break it down by individual assistant. It's not one blended bucket, so you know like more of the stuff that's going into it, and you can break it down and see like how much ChatGPT or how much Claude or how much every other tool got you the visitors. So it also connects with the larger HubSpot reporting, so it stamps the contact record, so you can see like which deals actually started inside of the AI answer, and so on. And those contacts can then be segmented and reported on like any other source. Yeah, again, if you're using HubSpot, it's super useful. It's already there. It doesn't cost you anything, so no reason not to use this, in my opinion. Obviously, the layer one has a ceiling, right? Specifically, mobile apps do not pass a refer. So if somebody is using ChatGPT on their phone or like a Gemini app, the refer is frequently like stripped. So it means that if somebody comes in using like a ChatGPT app, it's not going to count as an AI referral. It's going to count as a direct traffic source, which sucks, but it's just the nature of the game. We can't actually change this. We can't do anything here. It's how this tool works. And again, we talked about this, but the AI overviews and AI mode, they all report like organic search, which doesn't tell you like anything because it's all gonna look like traditional SEO. It's not gonna look like AI search. But again, until actually Google fix this, we can't do anything there. The layer two is about visibility, or more specifically prompt tracking, which I think majority of our industry is focusing on. We now have Search Console that added the AI report in June. It's still rolling out. I do not have access to this, but there's not much to actually see here. It's pretty generic breakdown as part of the performance report. It just gives you the impressions for your pages that they get cited inside of the AI overviews and AI mode, but it doesn't give you queries. It doesn't give you clicks. It doesn't give you click-through rate. It doesn't give you any like position tracking or anything like that, which makes it super, super useless in my opinion, because you can't really action on this data because, it's just impressions, and that's not useful enough to make like any permanent change. It's still rolling out, so we may see clicks over time. We may see click-through rates and all of the other important stuff that, I'm going to show Bing already has. And I'm assuming that the reason we are not seeing clicks is because Google doesn't want to actually give us this data, because it's gonna look pretty bad for them, as they keep claiming that there is no effect of AI on actual clicks to the websites, and we all kind of know that's not true. But that's just Google for you. Bing, luckily, is much ahead of Google here. Inside of the Bing Webmaster Tools, you have the AI performance report. That's been live for quite some time, since February last year, or this year, I think. Sorry, this year. I think clicks and impressions. So the difference from Google is that you get clicks and you also get like intents, topics, and the citation share, which is essentially all we kind of want. We can see like what is the actual grounding query. As you can see on this screenshot here, you can see what was the grounding query, what was the intent of the query, what was the topic, the citations and citation share, comparing it to the actual competitors for that particular grounding query, which is amazing. Unfortunately, all this data is limited to just Microsoft Copilot, which is like 1% of all of AI search traffic. It's pretty small, but it's still something that I think is worth looking at, just to get a general idea on how these AI searches actually work. It's a small volume, but I think everybody should be looking at it. And then the actual grounding queries that I just showed you here, like those are the things to focus on, right? Because they're not actual prompts, so don't get that wrong. If you actually like report them as prompts, they're not prompts. So if I go back here, like all of these, they're not the actual prompts that people use to find information. They're the actual grounding queries, which if you remember from our like slide number 2, it's how these AI tools work, right? So somebody asks a question, you can't see that question, but you can see the grounding query that the actual AI tool used to find the information, which again is still super useful. But they're not prompts, and I don't know if you're ever going to get prompts, because all of these AI chatbots, they're private companies. They don't really have a reason to give us prompts and prompt data, and it would be probably a huge violation of many laws to actually give out those user stuff. So I don't think we're ever going to see that, but yeah, this is the best we get. uh, Obviously, impressions are not traffic. So, we've been seeing a lot of this inside of Copilot and other tools where, you get so much impressions and people kind of mistake that like for traffic, or like, oh, I'm showing up so much. Impressions are a faulty metric, not to be focused too much on, just because they can be, uh, the numbers can be huge and they may not mean anything, because you may not get a lot of traffic from it at all, or maybe not any traffic essentially. So citations are also not clicks. So you can't report impressions as like a number that's maybe growing, or like as a number that's like that important. But you should still measure it, because that's how being in the answer, which means getting impressions, is how you get into the consideration set. But uh, you don't really have to make that like a priority of your campaign, like to increase the impressions, because again, you could be getting a lot of impressions but not a lot of value out of it, because that value actually cashes out on a different part of reporting. And if you want to watch the assistants directly, you can obviously use a bunch of these different tools. These are a couple ones. I think the internet is now full of these prompt tracking tools. We have the HubSpot one that tracks ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity. It's $50 a month. You can buy more prompts if you want to track more than the set that they give you. Ahrefs obviously has their own one. It's called Brand Radar. It allows you to see mentions and citations across assistants, along with the share of voice tracking that Bing also provides you. They have SEMrush. They have their own AI toolkit. Again, prompt tracking. I think it's pretty easy to build your own, because what all of these tools essentially do is they just prompt all of these chatbots on a particular schedule. So you can basically build a small dashboard and just run the APIs that are public, with a fixed prompt set, and just log the answers. That's what we did, because it's so much easier to and so much more cost effective to do this. And even today, I think anybody can vibe code a dashboard and just connect all of the APIs to that, and just run your own prompt tracking, because you're gonna get the same results that Ahrefs gets, the SEMrush gets, the HubSpot gets. So, and you're gonna get it at a much lower price. The layer 3, again, consumption. Uh, Again, this is the one I think a lot of people miss, and that one is showing which AI systems are actually reading your website, and it shows you how are they doing it, and what you should be looking for here. Your server logs are the place where you actually can see this. Depending on the system you're using, you may not have access to the server logs. Unfortunately, not all of the systems are actually providing this data. We know Shopify, for example, doesn't give this data. So if you're on Shopify, you're essentially screwed off from these all of these server logs. You just can't get that going in. But there are several different bots here that you should be tracking, like GPT bot, which is the OpenAI's training bot, and you also have the AI search bot, which is again from OpenAI, but that's for the search index or the grounding. So you need to make a difference between these two, because they do a different job. This one is far more important, I would say, because that one can show you more clearly the ChatGPT actually scraping your website live for data, and that kind of gives you the insight that users are actually asking questions about a topic or like a product or a service that you might be selling, and that OpenAI is going to the website and scraping data from your website. We also have like ChatGPT user, which is fetching live. Again, pretty similar to the OAI search bot. They use this in slightly different ways, but again, they're doing essentially the same thing. Anthropic only has the Claude bot. Perplexity only has the Perplexity bot. So you don't get the difference between the bot for training data and just a general bot for grounding results. And you also have the Google Extended, which is the Google's AI opt-out control. Again, all this data may not be super useful on its own, but when it's combined with some of the other benchmarks, it does show you, it's like a proxy that kind of tells you what pages of yours are actually being scraped, which can tell you which of the pages AI assistants kind of focus on. And you can also see like which of your pages are not being scraped on, which I think is super useful information, because you know that those are the pages that may need additional love from you, like maybe adding more internal links, maybe they don't have good enough rankings and so on. So I think this is still pretty useful data. I think we should also touch briefly about this particular part of the conversation, which means should you be blocking these bots or not? This is going to be a purely business decision for most people. I think everybody who's selling like a service or a product, specifically those in like B2B industries, like they are not likely to be blocking any of these bots because they don't have a reason. You'll kind of want all of the users coming in from AI search, but I think everyone who is running like an informational website, like blogs, news websites, they may have like a case for keeping these bots out of it, because for them the information is the whole business. So if they let all of these bots, scrape their content and use it without essentially giving them any sort of credit, like that's probably not good business for them. We can't obviously advise anybody not to use this or to use this. That's up to you to actually do this and to stop particular bots from scraping your content. You can do partly from robots.txt file, but you can also do from your server, because I've seen this happen quite a few times where I've tried to block a particular bot inside of robots.txt, and the actual bot didn't respect those rules, which absolutely sucks. And I'm pretty sure it's illegal to do that, but I don't think they care, because I'm definitely not going to sue them or anything. So the only way to actually block these is inside of your server. So Cloudflare is doing a lot of this stuff. So if you're on Cloudflare, for example, you can quite easily block this with a single click. You can try and see like what happens if you do that. And then llms.txt, I just wanted to mention that doesn't do anything. If you were wondering, it's a I don't know how actually this became a thing, and who initially proposed this as a sort of like a convention for pointing what AI systems can do or not. It's definitely not being respected by any AI bots. So I would say you can use it if you want it, but it's not gonna do anything for you or your website. So yeah. And the layer number 4, and the most important one, which is the lead, sales, and revenue coming in from AI search. How can you actually connect all of these dots, and what can you do? The part is that I sorry, I just had to take water. The part that you have to remember is that if you're on HubSpot, for example, like AI referrals kind of follows the person all the way through. So if they came in through any of these tools directly through a link, HubSpot allows you to kind of follow through until they actually take an action, and then you can see like if an AI assistant send the person over and they convert it into a contact, and that contact became a deal. Like inside of HubSpot, that's pretty trackable and visible, like right from the get go. You don't have to do anything, and that's all in there. So if you're on HubSpot, you can see this pretty clearly right now. Uh, uh, that's unfortunately the smaller part of what you can see. most of the stuff that actually influence the sale is inside of the prompt tracking layer, or like the visibility layer, and that's something that you can't fully track. And again, that's essentially what this presentation has been about. Like all these different layers, like it's really hard to see unless you track everything, along with the server logs, traffic, direct traffic, the prompt tracking. Like all of this has to play together in order to for you to figure out like what actually influenced the sale. And maybe most important, you have to actually talk to your customers. Add the AI assistant to your forms, add the AI assistant to like the sales calls, like ask your actual leads and clients like how did they actually come to the website, because then you can sort of like bridge this gap and better understand like have they used AI tools, have they been influenced by that, what type of questions they asked, and so on. And this is nothing new. Again, anybody who's been doing like brand marketing has been living with this for a very long time. Like if you've been doing like YouTube campaigns and you pay a particular influencer to promote your product or a service, you could never really know and understand like how much that actually influenced the sale. That's just the reality of the marketing world, specifically brand marketing. And now we can see kind of search getting more integrated into that, where we do not have like a traditional path we can follow and a traditional funnel that's always been the case with SEO, unfortunately. So we have to kind of bridge this gap with a bunch of different layers. A good proxy for this is the branded search. So when an assistant actually recommends you, a lot of people will go and Google your name to check if you're real or go to your website. That leaves a trace. Inside of Google Search Console, you're going to see all of these queries, branded queries getting impressions and clicks. And if you see an increase in your branded clicks and branded clicks and impressions, you can kind of see, you can kind of try to guess like why is that happening. Again, it's just a proxy. Brand search could be increased by many different reasons. So you have to, kind of compare with other marketing campaigns you may be running. But if you can see that other layers of tracking are showing you that, there is an increase, like if your server logs are showing you a particular bots are hitting your page, and then you can see that you're being mentioned in particular prompts you're tracking, and then you see the brand and search increase, you can kind of guess that this like climb might be related to AI search. But again, you have to measure that alongside all the other marketing campaigns you might be running. This is just correlation. It's not to be taken seriously, and it's not causation. So if you see your branded search rising, it might not be AI at all, but you have to kind of make that guess yourself. And again, we talked about this. Proxy number 2 is just asking your customers, trying to figure this out yourself directly. Unfortunately, a lot of this is still a black box. We can't track everything. All of these answers are inside of AI search tools are non-deterministic, so it's going to be always hard to track. So sometimes the simple solution is just to ask people directly how did they actually find you, and what type of questions have they asked, and so on. And you can also look for other things like, direct traffic often being, like AI search traffic is often being bucketed inside of direct. We mentioned why, because if they're on their phone and they're using ChatGPT, like they're going to be counted as direct traffic, unfortunately. Uh, Citations, again, if you're seeing inside of your prompt tracking layer that there are so much citations happening, you can kind of guess that the increase in traffic could be related to that. Again, it's correlation, not causation, but so many things in SEO are like that. And it's just a proxy. But again, you have to look for these things at this moment, because reporting just didn't catch up to all of the new stuff happening inside of search. So we have to do that. So I think the 8 numbers to track every month is like traffic, sessions from AI assisted channel, and then contacts with AI referrals as an original source. Super easy to track right now. You can use Google Analytics, you can use HubSpot. It's already there. You don't have to do much. If you want, you can custom search group on analytics to track this. Inside of visibility, AI impressions, you can use Search Console, Bing to see like particular queries inside of Bing at least that are being used. And then the citation share across your fixed prompt set. If you're doing prompt tracking, you can kind of see like what is happening then. Consumption, AI crawler hits, what is like live fetch versus training data, depending on the bot that you're seeing hitting your website, and then the pages that actually keep coming back for. I think that's important to track because, again, it tells you which pages are being surfaced, which pages are being scraped, and importantly, which pages are not. And then the pipeline from actual AI source contacts, which is super important, like leads, sales, and so on. And with proxy, like branded search and actual self-reported AI mentions, which you have to do yourself and make judgments yourself. There are a couple of things that I would ignore for now. Again, chasing a position in AI answer, that's not what you should be focusing on. It's not a rank tracker. It doesn't work like that. You're just going to lose your time trying to chase a position. It's always going to be a different answer. So all of the prompt tracking should just be like directional data and not rank tracking data. We've seen a lot of talk about schema as an AI ranking lever. I think so many people are talking about this. There is no study that can actually confirm that schema is an important practice for getting better rankings inside of AI, and there is quite a lot of data that's pointing otherwise. And it's easy to run this type of studies in SEO to make any sort of claims because somebody's gonna run a study across like 1,000 websites where 700 websites will show better rankings and they will have schema implemented, and somebody is going to draw the conclusion and say, well, schema has actually influenced this. It's so obvious to see that correlation doesn't equal causation in SEO. Just because they had schema implemented doesn't mean that schema is an actual AI ranking lever. And you can test a lot of this stuff yourself. You can see that schema gets scraped and ignored during the training data processing, and also gets ignored during the actual retrieval of the website. I think all of the AI chatbots essentially ignore schema because that's not something that they use at all. So I won't focus too much. Again, you should be doing schema as an SEO thing if it's a part of your SEO strategy, but specifically for AI stuff, I think you could absolutely ignore it. And anyone selling you any certainty when it comes to AI search, like ignore them. Like I've seen a lot of these demos on LinkedIn where somebody's saying, "Oh, we are ranking #1 for all of these different things inside of ChatGPT." Like, yeah, sure, right. It doesn't work like that. So don't fall for any stuff like that. The stuff that actually works is pretty much unglamorous and very familiar with what we've been doing all along for like organic search. Being useful on questions that people actually ask. Be quotable, be in places where people are actually looking for. Maybe that's Reddit, maybe that's third-party websites. Be active over there. Be actually technically accessible to crawlers, which means have good technical SEO done, and that's pretty much it. That's the job. It obviously has a new name, and a lot of people want to sell it as this new thing, but I think most of the stuff that we've been doing in AI search in SEO has been valid for AI search. So the tracking and measuring obviously much harder and has its own set of challenges, but I think we can bridge that gap at least partially and try to figure it out the best we can. This is it for this one. Now time for questions.